All right. Do you want to just start with I guess everything that happened when you first like touched down and landed in China?
Yeah, of course. I suppose it might even like just outlining the kind of testing process beforehand might be kind of relevant. So the way it works is back in Ireland or wherever you're coming from, you have to get two different tests. You have to get a PCR test, which is your sort of standard nose swab test, and then you've also to get an antibody test. And the antibody to test for is immunoglobulin M. From my understanding, this is to kind of show it kind of shows up when you're still infectious, whether or not you're symptomatic or not. So you could be over it, but still be able to spread it to someone. But yeah, you get those two tests, and they have to be within 48 hours. And if you're flying direct to China, that's grand. It's even handier. But unfortunately, there's no direct flights, so we had to fly to Amsterdam. In Amsterdam, there was a place in the airport specifically for people translating to China, and then we got the same tests again there. And again, I should say as well, every time the test is done, you have to send an application through an app on WeChat to the relevant embassy. So if it was in Ireland, it'd be the embassy in Dublin, Amsterdam embassy somewhere in the Netherlands, and they review it, and then we'll send you a little green QR code, or else a red QR code, which obviously you're not accepted, and they give you a reason, which is quite common. Like they might say, like, I know for us, they had an issue because we didn't have a date of our test on the kind of report. It could be, could have been from whenever. So it's really like fairly strict. But like once you have everything, it's okay. After that, then I guess it's the process of boarding. So we went up to the gate. There is a kind of pre-boarding thing, so everyone sort of queues up as normal, and then you have your green like health check thing on your phone to say, look, I'm good to go, and then your passport's checked. Obviously, for us, our visas were checked, which is just in the passport, and they then funnel you through a little kind of channel. So there's a table where there's a woman who has kind of reports on the table, and she checks your temperature and notes your temperature. And it's not like for show because I was refused 2 weeks before. It's very serious. If your temperature is too high, you won't get on the plane. It's not like Ireland where you can kind of talk your way onto it. It's you have no hope of getting on. So yeah, it's fairly like your temperature is checked once, and then they check your boarding pass as normal, like you would on a plane. You kind of walk down the little thing that connects to the plane, and before you get on the plane, they check your temperature again. Then they like spray like shit on your hands, like to sanitize your hands. You then walk straight down the plane to wherever your seat is, and you find a bag of like food. So it's like apple and just little small sort of things that you can munch on throughout the flight because there is no like open hot food allowed on flights to China anymore, for obvious reasons. And then after that, they give you documentation. One is for just normal like cross-border stuff, just to say where you're going to stay. The other one is for specifically about your health, so you have to know where your final destination is. For me, it's obviously where you're obviously quarantined in, which is the city I flew to, and you have to give an address of where you will be going to after you finish your quarantine. So I'll just briefly, the quarantine period is different from the city and province to province, but everywhere is at least 14 days. I know in Beijing it's 21 days, but normally what would happen is you would spend 14 days in a province, then you're allowed to transit to wherever you're actually living, another 7 days in wherever you're living. So whether that be in a hotel or in your home or whatever. So it's normally 21 days in total. So we fill out the form, and it just details who your contacts are in China. So obviously for us, it was our employer, and kind of you just fill in information about your health. Have you any symptoms? Have you been into contact with anyone? And all that kind of stuff. And yeah, so plane flies as normal. Like staff have boiler suits on. I don't know how they did it, but fair play to them. Just normal flight. They made it as normal as they could make it. And it's not just like this is not just like the airline, it's like the policy. So any airline flying into China has to operate by standards. Like they have to clean the toilet every time someone uses it, like literally every single time, which is like mad, but that's obviously how they're stopping spreads. Once you're done, then it's like they kind of play a little informatic video which sort of explains what's going to happen. We're still kind of a bit lost, but we're probably waiting about 45 minutes on the runway. I think another plane had landed, so they wanted to clear the passengers through the process before they just made another group of people queue, because it's sensible. So you get off the plane, you're put onto a bus, and they bring you to the start of just like a normal entrance into a terminal. Everyone's in full hazmat gear. It's like they're as friendly as they can be. It is a bit like intimidating, but like they're really really helpful. So the way it works is Chinese nationals have like a different code to us. We have like a specific foreigner kind of code. So we fill out a form on your phone. It's done through English, but they don't really make you do it because it's complicated. They just send you over to someone to help you straight away because they know like you're not going to know this, that, or the other. That person like helped me fill it out. It's similar to the paper form where you're going to live, who your contact is, have you been into contact with anyone, where are you from, where have you been the last 20, where have you lived in the last 6 months, all stuff to just keep track. The biggest question was like, have you been to England or South Africa in the last 21 days? Because I'm sure you'd be put in a room if you said yes. But yeah, and they kind of, at this point, they try as much as they can. Once you've done that, you get a little barcode on your phone. And this barcode is used for your testing. So you kind of go through a little channel that live reads your temperature and you get waved on. And then you come to this mad thing where there's a lady at a desk and she scans your little scan on your phone with her phone or her little reader, and it prints off a little thing which is like it's like a label for a vial. So you take your little label in your vial as you get down there, and you go into this room where there's like pods lined either side, and they're like little isolation pods so that people can be tested separately, and they're not all breathing the same air. There's a system where it's like a red. It's in Chinese, but I mean red writing and green writing. You can tell which one you're supposed to go into. So you go in, and they do the swab test. It's like stick it up your nose for about 10 seconds. Just leave it there. It's quite different to the ones I've had before, but it was grand. And then she puts the label that was just printed off on the vial. And yeah, you get waved on. After that, then you go through customs as normal. You go through border, immigration or whatever. They just check your visa, and you pick up your bags, and you put them through a little scanner. After that, then you go through this little double door. Sorry, I'll make this complicated stuff for you to write down. Sorry. So you go through another set of doors, and you see a poster which informs you, which you're supposed to scan with your phone, and they have an English one and a Chinese one, and you scan it, and it's like you fill out information about where you're going. It's similar enough, but it's for this area, so it's for this city. So this code is to make sure that anyone who isn't supposed to be walking streets, like it will be red, like because you just haven't quarantined. And this is for after your 14 days, so that when you go to a train station or an airport again, you show this code, you say, look, I've done my 14 days. This is just how you initiate that process. And they then put you on a bus. And there was only about 4 people on the bus because we were kind of last off the plane. After that, the bus drives about 10 minutes to, I describe as like a processing center, I suppose. It's like a big office, but the bottom floor is rented out, and I don't think there's anyone in the top. There is Communist Party flags everywhere. It's cool because it is like obviously run by the party. It was amazing to see, and I think I said the big Xi Jinping thing going in, but you're kind of directed off. They asked if you speak Chinese. Unfortunately, I had to say no. I wish I did, but so we got kind of assigned this woman who was really, really, really helpful and walked us through everything. Again, it's more everything is QR codes in China. You just scan it and it takes you straight to another thing where you take this QR code and you go to the front of the desk, and a woman compares that with the other one you fill out to make sure the information matches, to make sure you're being assigned in the right place. And then they put you in, they have kind of like empty rooms with chairs just spaced out. So they'd be labeled like 1 through 9. And you go in there and you just wait. They just say, just wait. Free bottles of water in there. There's like little snacky things and stuff if you want. It's all free. And then after about 5 minutes, someone came in to get us. They went to me and first because we're obviously the only ones with like foreign names, so it was easy to say like, oh well, this you. And I was like, yeah, okay. Then they brought us out of that room. We formed 2 lines and they put us on another bus. And that bus drove about 10 minutes, if even maybe 5 minutes, to the hotel where we're staying. You don't get to pick the hotel; it's just assigned to you. And that's the only thing. It's a bit of a grab for the cheapest room. So if you can fight your way to the front of the queue, you should. But it's not too bad. You get off the bus, your temperature is checked. Or should say actually your temperature is checked as well at the processing center. So your temperature is checked every time you get off the bus. Before they let you in the hotel, they check your temperature. They give you, I'm not sure, they give you this little document, which is like kind of the house rules. It just says stuff like don't go outside your room, don't do this, don't do that, and it tells you like about like little essentials. So if you want to order something off the internet, like I don't know, snacky things or anything, it just gives you an address to put in, and it tells you what you can't order. You obviously can't order takeaway or fresh, like open food or anything like that for obvious reasons. And they also give you a little thing for filling out your order for food. So this is how that procedure works. I'll explain that after. But yeah, the front desk, you fill out the hotel's own form, which kind of gives them a contact number, and it links up to the previous test you did at the airport. So you have to do another test then, which is a blood test. And it means that those results can be matched up and you can view them together and you can show them to other people. And yeah, so we were checked in then within about 5 minutes. Chose the cheapest room available, which is still, and I think the price was €45 a night. Now that's subsidised off the normal hotel rate. You wouldn't get this. It's a nice hotel. You wouldn't get anywhere near it, and I wouldn't be staying here. But I think that's subsidised by the state to some degree, and then obviously we're getting money back off the job for it, so it's not too bad. Myself and my partner had to quarantine separately. They're fairly strict that you have to be married or whatever to quarantine together. But aside from that, they're really, really helpful. They gave us like 2 rooms next to each other, so we talked through the door or whatever. And yeah, I guess then you just get into the hotel. You have a read through the document. There's like a menu at the back, so I can talk about how the food works. Most important thing. every day before 4 o'clock, you fill out this little slip, which you kind of fill out based off a menu. Um, your breakfast is free, but the food is like subsidized. It's like everything is like €3 for, and it's a full meal, like it's a proper size meal. You don't go hungry at all. It's great. You pick your lunch and you pick your dinner. And if you want to pay extra for like Western food, that's an option. Feel free. But that's the one thing that's very clearly not subsidised, and understandably so. But you stick that down every day, just outside. I guess I can describe it. The way it works is the corridor in it's like a normal corridor, but there's like plastic lining the floor, which is cleaned every single day. I think it's like twice a day. They come along with like a Hoover and spray thing. And then they have every hotel room has a chair outside, and this is where they place your meals, and this is where you place your rubbish. So you obviously bag up your rubbish and they take it away. Your temperature is checked twice a day by a nurse. She comes around about 10 about 4 o'clock, and they just log that in the system. On the second day, then you do a blood test, which isn't too bad. They just take you outside, sit you down on the chair, and you're done in 2 minutes. Very, very professional. And that was the one thing as well that was completely different to Ireland, is that in Ireland, most of the tests I've done have been at least 24 hours for results. For this one, for the swab I done, it was 6 hours, and for the bloods, it was like 8 or something like that. So the turnaround is crazy compared to they've obviously been used to doing it. But yeah, I guess that's the bulk of things. I don't know if you want any questions about any individual things I need to go over.
There's kind of stories coming out now because Ireland has only just introduced the mandatory hotel quarantine. So lots of people giving out about how that's going. One of the big complaints is like the sort of hotel staff and airport staff not wearing full proper PPE. You seem much more confident about how that's going in China. Is it like, the like
Yeah,
disposable paper suits and masks and face shields and everything?
literally anyone who's in the chain, whether that be in the airport, or in a hotel, or the bus driver, even the bus is has like a plastic shield dividing the bus. Everyone is in full PPE, full mask, full suit, gloves. That's changed, and you watch them change the gloves every single time they deal with someone new. Full mask, full face shield. Not a chance. No one will be anywhere near you. It's extremely well followed by. It's a societal thing, or it's just that it's been going on for so long. But I mean, I was just thinking earlier on about I was in Korea last year, and I remember talking to my mother, and we had all face masks on by then, and she was telling me, "Oh, they're saying you don't need face masks; they don't do it." But yet they then tried to implement it like I don't know a month later, and then public health, or public faith is a little bit shaky. You're saying, well, why did they say no and now they're saying yes? So, well, yeah, to answer your question, PPE is literally everywhere in this hotel. No one comes near you without. You really do feel quite reassured.
Yeah. And I suppose on the other side for yourself, did you to kind of like provide your own masks the whole time, or were you given proper surgical masks as you went through the process?
So we brought our own masks. Everyone seems to have their own masks. But from what I've seen with the process, if you were to ring down and say, look, I'm leaving tomorrow, I have no masks, they will send you up masks. They're everywhere. Like you see them in the airport. They have boxes of them that they're there to give out if people need them. But I think at this stage, it's so kind of I guess so common that just people just have their own masks now at this stage. They don't really not have them. But yeah, we brought our own, but there is options to get masks if needed.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, Yeah, one of the biggest criticisms in Ireland the whole time has been like the lack of clarity of information and things changing all the time. Have you noticed a change in that since you've gotten to China? I know it might be difficult with the language barrier, but do you feel like the information is clearer and that you have a better understanding of what you're supposed to do and not do?
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, no, that was one thing I definitely found is that for someone who doesn't speak Chinese and can't read Chinese, I'm amazed at how this is. It's very, very clear, always directed in advance whether or not you need something or what documents you need to have. It's all very clearly laid out. A lot of times in English as well, whenever they can. Um, there doesn't really be any sort of confusion. You're told exactly outright you need this test done, you need this test done. And if there's stages where the language barrier, maybe there's a form you have to fill out and it's in Chinese, um, literally anyone. I've never found people so helpful. They're just happy to fill it out for you. They won't even like just tell you what it is. They're just type away. But there's no confusion at all. People know exactly what they're doing. And it's clear that having had this response for the last 18 months or something, it's just part of life for them. It's just very very well organized.
Yeah, brilliant. And for like when you get to the end of your quarantine period, do you have an idea of like what restrictions there are around like on the other side?
Yeah, the thing is, the city we're staying in, unless you live here, you're not allowed just like around the streets type of thing, because of where it is. It's specifically for like a main quarantine city. So 5 days before you're due to leave, you have to. It's all done by QR code again. You let the relevant people know where you're going and how you plan on get there, and they organize transport. Really doesn't charge anything for you, just to save you, so that you're not getting in, a public bus or getting in a taxi driver's car, just to kind of get you out of the city because they don't want you here, which is fair enough. But yeah, no, it's very very clear in that regard, and yeah, yeah, it's very well laid out.
The big headlines here over the past few days have been like three people it was found had just left the quarantine. Um, do you have you heard any stories about that happening here? Like in China? I mean, do you think it would be even possible?
I'd love to see someone try. I couldn't see them getting past the elevator. Never mind, just disappeared into the night. Yeah, I heard that, and I was honestly shocked because I'm initially, comparing it to the situation I'm in. I'm saying, well, if I was to walk out the front door, um, I don't even know how you would. I'd heard. I think there was it to do with a smoking break or something. I don't think there. I don't know if you can request it to smoke or anything like that in China when you're quarantining. It's kind of like I don't know. But yeah, you wouldn't have a chance to get anywhere. Not with your in your bags, but I'm sure you pick up straight away. The second to get on some sort of transport, I'd have to present your which wouldn't be green. So they'd be saying, "Well, why are you out here?" So I guess having an organised response sort of makes sense to every sort of facet of society.
So just to clarify, like any public transport you step onto, you have to show this like green symbol that shows you're either negative or have done the quarantine.
Yeah, essentially, yeah. I don't know about other cities, but I know definitely in this city because there's a lot of people using this city as their kind of way into China because a lot of flights come through here. So in this city, yeah, you wouldn't get on the bus without showing a green QR code.
Oh, that's how it should be, really.
Makes sense.
How are you like feeling about the response and the systems you've seen in place? Like, does it make you feel more confident about being in China and like safer, or is it kind of going in the opposite direction into authoritarian surveillance state? Um,
It's really, really reassuring. You can see why things are under control, and you can see why, like when I get back to the place in Belgium, like I'll be able to walk into a Billsa and have a drink and have some sort of normality, because like there's no thing of rolling lockdowns. To say if an outbreak in a city happened, a localized lockdown wouldn't take place. We shut it over in 10 days or a week or something, because nothing would move. And it's very clear to see that this sort of full society wide coordinated response um, effective. Shows you, like, whatever your opinions about China, it just shows you when you kind of put public interest at heart, you really can do proper things, and you're not tied down to, you know, then listen to Payback want you to do or anyone else. If in the event of an actual outbreak, there will be a localized response or a localized lockdown, similar to what you would have seen in the early days of Wuhan. But the rest of the country would be relatively safe and relatively continue as normal. And you can see that when you kind of run a system or run a country with, I guess, public interest at heart and people's health at heart. And even like if you were like, I don't know, an ultra capitalist, like it doesn't take a genius to say that it makes more sense to do, a single effective lockdown than constantly trying to open and close society. Yeah, I complete confidence now after seeing how the process works.
do you happen to know like how many cases it would take for a lockdown? Like, would it be like a single one in an area, or?
I'm not sure, but from what I've seen, it's fairly they're as proactive as can be. It wouldn't be like Ireland where they'd be waiting for, right, there's 400. That's a bit much. Let's lock down. They kind of seem to deal with things on the spot. They say there's effective things in place for kind of like a track and trace system, similar to what we have, but definitely a lot more, I guess, streamlined and integrated into your kind of normal life. So yeah, I'm not sure the exact figure, but I'd be fairly confident it wouldn't be high anyways.
Yeah, just to sort of like in these sort of localized lockdowns, would it be like anybody trying to get in or out of that area would have to, have all of the tests and do quarantine as if they were coming from another country? Like,
Yeah, definitely. From what I've seen, it's a case of if you can imagine like a bubble put around the like what needs to get in and out will get in and out, whether that be like food and I don't know, people doing essential work. You wouldn't. I don't know. I doubt you'd be able to talk your way through through a checkpoint or anything like that. From what I've seen, it's a case of like everything just shuts down, and I think it's kind of accepted in society that like, look, we've lost a week, but we'll be back to normal in a week. It's a better way to be. But yeah, if you can imagine like a bubble, it's the best way I'd describe it.
do you have any final thoughts? Anything else that kind of stands out as different or being handled better where you are?
Yeah, I guess like to kind of conclude, I think it's given me a lot of hope for getting back to normal. But I think the most depressing thing is when you look at how simple it is. Like I understand like the kind of the way WeChat works is kind of different to the way we would have in Ireland, but there's definitely a way where we can kind of integrate these things into our phones and just have a proper response to the thing. I just feel like every time everything that kind of goes on back home is reactive rather than proactive. It's there's constant appeasement of IBEC and business lobbyists, and I just feel it doesn't come into play here. I have, and it's not even like it's just dealt with in a different way. and whatever. Look, people have their critiques of China, or whatever, but it always feels like business is subservient to the people and the party. If you look at like statements from airlines, they'll be praised by the party for good work done. It's not a case of like Michael O'Leary publicly going on like national radios and saying we need to open up. Like it's madness. And I think that's the kind of fundamental difference, is the kind of I guess the roles that they play in society. I just think we're 18 months too late in the way we're coming to these things, and you can see like even with the stuff with the quarantine hotels back home, like there's always going to be teething problems. Like we could have dealt with them 18 months ago, instead of just bringing in this crap now. And it's hard, but hopefully is get out of it a bit with a few more vaccines. Just as well, it's quite interesting actually. The vaccines I think is available to foreigners in Beijing now, but mass vaccination rollout hasn't been a priority here. From what I understand, the priority of the kind of Sinovac thing is to export it as much as possible to third world countries. I could be wrong, but from my understanding, it's that China understands that in order for things to get back to normal, like these countries need to get back to normal as well, and they don't have the liberty of having a government that kind of puts public health first and can do these lockdowns. So they've said, look, we understand that if there's a spike, we can lock down. So it's better for us to export as much of this vaccine as possible to poorer countries. And as you've seen with the kind of the refusal of the West to kind of suspend IP rights on vaccines, like there's a lot of countries that are completely reliant on China, and it's terrific. They're some of the poorest countries in the world, and they've just been through some of the harshest times in the world, and they're going to go through even harder ones for being exploited to get every last penny out of them.
Inspiring to hear that China has taken this properly international outlook on it, and
absolutely,
no one nowhere else really has. The UK apparently is planned that if they have a surplus of doses, they'll donate it to Ireland, because they've just no confidence in the government of the 26 counties and are worried there'll be a spike in the 6 counties because we can't get our act together.
It is hard to kind of watch things back home and see how things should be done, like and how they could be done. It's not like fucking rocket science, you know what I mean? I think there's this idea that like and it's always kind of anti-communist stuff, that like China is so like bureaucratic or whatever that it can control every. It's like the people and the party go hand in hand, and people do see the benefit of doing these things, and that's why they're happy to do them. That's why you don't get people fucking moaning about wearing a mask and all this absolute Americanized import freedom nonsense. You can see that people genuinely see the value in it, and people genuinely see that it's better for society. It means that we can live good lives, and we can be relatively back to normal in spite of what we've been through already. So I think that's something that's quite interesting, quite different between here and back home.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, from what you described, so it sounds like it was a lot of forms and a lot of bureaucracy. But I mean, if it's keeping you and everyone else safe, like it's worth it.
Well, that's it. And in fairness, the forms aren't as bad as to fill out on your phone as they are on paper. It's like Angry Birds or something like that. You can trick yourself into thinking it's more positive.
We end the interview there then.